SMQBs, episode 143. Pope, give us your number.
Number 4.
Yeah, we should have guessed that one.
That would be the number 4 college football playoff, Alabama Crimson Tide. I look forward to our debate.
I'm going to go right after that one. My number is 1,000,000. And that is how many death threats that Boo Corrigan has gotten for putting Alabama at number 4.
Rooster, what do you have?
My number is 0, as in my percentage confidence level that Brian Cashman gets it right at the winter meetings.
Oh,
House?
My number is 6. That is the number of carries given to DeAndre Swift last night against the San Francisco 49ers. When the entire objective was to keep the Niners off the field, the Eagles decided to pass.
All right. And I'm going to give you a number of, excuse me, under the weather, Chris, 28. That is Juan Soto's wins above replacement player. Stay tuned.
Oh boy, here we go.
Wow.
That's
what everybody wants to hear this week.
let's talk about
I do.
Juan Soto.
I'm very interested in Juan Soto.
I bet you are.
Yeah, you should be.
We're in pinstripes.
All right, I'm going to cough my way through this tonight. We got to get started with college football, though. And this is an abomination. This is a travesty. I think there's going to be congressional hearings.
Whatever.
House, tee this up for us. What's going on?
Here's the thing. We have a Bama fan on this podcast. And despite the fact that he didn't go there, we will give him his legitimate stripes. He is year in and year out a legit Bama fan. So I think we could just hold him to the side for a second, because I think he's ready for the full arsenal that's coming on from all this. But originally, as a fan watching college football, sick and tired of watching Notre Dame, and TCU get thumped year after year. As a fan, I thought that the committee landed on the right place. And then I started listening to the objective wisdom, not just of the FSU world. And I realized just how wrong the committee got it. And I realized that what they did was a projection for the fans based on money for ESPN. And what they did not do was really adhere to the rules and guidelines for the committee and review the season as a whole. And I think beyond what everybody has said time and again, and we'll probably join in that chorus, I think what some people are not talking about is the threat to the existence, really, of the ACC. Like, what's the point? For the ACC, what is the point if you are Florida State? What is the point if you are Clemson? What is the point if you're Virginia or Duke or North Carolina to go out, schedule games against SEC teams? Why not, if you're given the opportunity to run and leave and join the SEC, why wouldn't you do that? Like, what would be the point of staying in the ACC at this point?
Otherwise, you're an undefeated Power 5 champion like FSU, and you find out that the season record means nothing unless it's used to justify putting in an SEC team that has a loss.
It's worse than a loss. It really is, because
they got thumped by Texas. It wasn't just a loss, it was a thumping.
Not only did they get thumped by Texas, but I think even our Bama fan would acknowledge, as he did, honestly, during the pod, during the season, that they struggled against teams that they should not have struggled against.
No doubt.
And Jalen Milroe, he's a talented kid, but he kind of threw up a prayer against Auburn. He threw up a prayer, and that prayer is greater that an undefeated Power 5 team, an undefeated Power 5 team has never been left out of the college football playoff since the beginning of it. And I do feel bad, and I know Milk doesn't because he's a Florida fan. I do feel bad for these FSU kids, including Jaden Daniel, but the entire group that played all season long, and their whole goal was get undefeated, because if you do, you're in the playoff. And apparently you don't.
Well, one thing, and I'll defend other stuff in a minute. When you say why even be in the ACC or whatever, you got to remember this was the last college football selection of 4 teams. Next year, this conversation is completely different. So I get what your point is for this year, but going forward, the ACC, their conference champion is going to be an automatic bid into the top 12, and more than likely they'll get 1, maybe 2 at larges, depending on how their things shake out. I get your point for this year. There's no penalty to be in the ACC, like you were talking about.
Tell that to the kids on Florida State, the seniors and the juniors.
I get that, but we're talking, and I think part of the whole analysis is that the committee knows they're going to get heat one way or the other. They're going to get heat. This was the last time they had 4 teams, and you know what? They said, "Fuck it, we're going to put the best 4 onto the playoff grid, and we'll take
the best 4 as determined by them, though. That's the problem, not by the rules.
Well,
not
okay,
by the records.
Let's talk about the rules. All right, because as trial lawyers, we like to tell stories. Well, this story began in June of 2012 when the BCS adopted the CFP Selection Committee protocol. The number one thing on their mission was select the best teams, rank them for inclusion in the playoff. And their principles that they followed were select the teams using a process that distinguishes among otherwise comparable teams by considering. And then there's 4 things that they put in place back in 2012. This system was always going to be subjective. It was always going to be flawed because you had 5 power conferences and you had 4 slots. This was inevitable. This was inevitable, right?
What's number 1?
Number 1, conference championships.
There you go. Okay.
Check and check. Both teams, Alabama, Florida State. Number 2, strength of schedule. Strength of schedule. Alabama had the number 5 strength of schedule. Florida State had the number 55 strength of schedule. Number 3, comparative outcomes of common opponents without incentivizing margin of victory. Well, Florida State played LSU 45-24, first game of the year, looked amazing. LSU looked like shit. Alabama played LSU 42-28 about a month ago, won by 14. Florida State won by 21. The final, so there's not really, if you don't do margin of victory, 7 versus 14, 7 versus 14, whatever. Then you have the final one, which is, and this is where the whole debate comes down to, other relevant factors such as unavailability of key player and coaches that may have affected team's performance during the season or likely will affect its postseason performance. Guys, they built it into the system in 2012 with the possibility that this might happen. It took a decade for them to actually invoke this rule. But if you listen to Boo Corrigan talk about what was talked about in the room, it was this Florida State team is a different team than it was for the last 11 weeks. And one more point that one, and say whether it's relevant or not, but one of the considerations that the people in there had was, who do you want to play? Would you rather play Florida State or would you rather play Alabama? I mean, that's what they said. Whether they should have taken that into consideration or not, that's up for them.
I think one thing that was really unfair, and I haven't heard it talked about too much. It's certainly not an original thought here, but the quarterback that we saw play Saturday night for Florida State would not be the quarterback playing in the semifinals, because that quarterback, the second string, the backup quarterback, was in concussion protocol. So Florida State had to play and win, by the way, with a freshman quarterback, the third string guy. When they play would play in the bowl game in the semifinals, you know, they would be playing with their second string quarterback who would have a month to get ready for the game. So it's pretty harsh to judge Florida State. You know, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, their offense was so bad. Their offense was so bad because they don't have their quarterback." No. The game we saw the other night was with their third string quarterback,
which they still won against Louisville, which is a good team, and that just shows you how good their defense is.
Yeah, they won because they on a wildcat play, the guy got like 70 yards, and that was the only touchdown. But that's
the only reason. That's the only reason you're alive is because of a bullshit play.
Yeah, in the Auburn game.
Yeah.
So I think.
Yeah, Milk. What do you think? Because you saw the backup quarterback.
To think. I've watched Florida State all year long. First of all, the backup quarterback was atrocious. Okay, and by the way, everyone's saying, "Oh, they beat 2 SEC teams." Florida is a terrible football team right now. Okay, terrible.
It's a rivalry game. Okay, it's a rivalry game.
That's fine, but they're a bad team. They're a bad team.
Okay, Auburn was a bad team, and Alabama almost lost in a
rivalry game.
Yeah,
Alabama always has a problem.
So to my point is this: Florida State looked really bad all year. They had some very questionable wins. They should have lost to Clemson. Guys, the guy missed a 30-yard field goal. So if you're going to use the Auburn, well, it was a miracle. That was a miracle right there. They won that game. They should have lost to Boston College. This is with Jordan Travis, by the way. Jordan Travis played all of these games. They should have lost to Miami. Or it was close. Miami's terrible. Terrible. So I'm sorry, they blew out Wake Forest. They blew out whoever. Their total resume over the course of a season was not that impressive. Yes, they went undefeated. So did Liberty. Okay, I'm not going there with that argument. I'm just saying it now you take away Jordan Travis, the one thing that was keeping that team together. I'm sorry, I think they nailed this. Like Florida State they will not be competitive in the playoff. I feel bad for the kids. Can I throw out
a question though? I mean, along those lines, how good is Michigan?
Oh, come on.
Michigan hasn't looked great.
That's
what?
That's obscene.
I don't know.
That's obscene. They've been.
I mean, if you're going to say that Florida
Michigan
State
hasn't looked great,
if you're going to say that Florida State hasn't, never really looked that good and wasn't that great, and their offense and this and that, I mean, Michigan hasn't really put up a ton of points.
I mean, they played two teams.
They go whole games without throwing the ball.
They played two teams. They played Penn State and they played Ohio State. Those are the teams they played.
Yeah.
And they beat Penn State pretty bad, and we know what they did with Ohio State. It was close.
If Florida State had played a top 5 team in the last 2 weeks, they would have lost by 40.
Every college football team right now, because they're chicken and they're scared of the upset, no college football team anymore can say they've played any more than 2 teams during the year in these Power 5 conferences. Nobody gets to say they played any more than come on. And by the way, as far as I remember, Florida State, from this same committee of the college football playoff, was ranked, I think, maybe 3 or 4 for the last 3 to 5 weeks. So tell me how it is when you're 3 or 4 for the last 5 weeks, including after Jordan Travis goes down in the game before. How is it that Bama goes from 8 and leapfrogs 4? Unless you just unless you want ratings, money, and a good game. It's money. I mean, we should just be honest about it.
They don't take into consideration injuries until the final ranking, and they've said that, and they've been consistent with that. They were asked that after every time. Book Oregon's like, we don't take that in consideration until the final ranking. I mean, they were signposting this was going to happen.
That's interesting. Also,
the only way that it happened, though, was Alabama to beat Georgia, who was 29 straight games, 2-time national defending champion. That's the only way this happens.
Bill, jump in, Bill.
What I have seen a lot happen over the last 24 hours, and first of all, I want everyone to know I hate Alabama. And I hate Nick Saban more than life. I am not defending Alabama. But you know what I've seen softened a lot is Alabama's victory over Georgia, who a week ago was the immortal team. Immortal, had not lost in 2 years. They took them out in a neutral site in Atlanta, though. Come on. We know that was so pro Georgia.
Yeah.
They took him out and like beat them head to head in the trenches.
By
like
3.
That's been
by 3 points.
So what? It's like that team hadn't lost in 2 years.
House, I heard a really good comparison of this that you'll appreciate. This would be like in whatever dreadful year it was that the Eagles won the Super Bowl, that
17.
when Carson Wentz got hurt,
Yep.
if all of a sudden the NFL came back and said, well, you're not really the same team, we're not going to put you in the playoffs this year.
That's beautiful.
Well,
beautiful.
right now, this year, there's an example. If you look at the AFC wildcard teams, it's the Steelers, Browns, and the Colts. In the hunt,
none of whom had their starter.
Right. In the hunt are the Texans and the Bills. Everybody would rather see the Texans and the Bills in the playoffs than the Steelers and the Browns. And everybody would rather face the Steelers and Browns over the Texans and Bills right now because they'd be afraid of losing to the latter two teams. The system stinks, is my point. It's a shitty system.
So what
want to reward teams
system? So what system would you rather have? Because we had the BCS, which was computer rankings, and everybody's like, no. We want there to be the opportunity for there to be some subjectivity, some eye test, and that's why they brought the committee.
If you're gonna have 5 if you're gonna have a power 5, you can't have 4 teams. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. I told you it was flawed when they built it.
The champion of each one of the power 5 leagues needs to be in. So you probably need to have 6 teams at a minimum.
Right. That's why they moved to 12.
Yeah, that's why they moved to 12.
This problem.
And you know what's ironic, guys, is that they could have had it this year, but the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the ACC commissioners killed it.
ACC did to screw the SEC over.
To screw the SEC. The ACC commissioner. How ironic is it that the Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, screwed Florida State ultimately, right? Because they could have had it this year. And my final point is this: would you guys rather have the computer rankings?
No, because you're setting me up. Because you already know the answer, so I'm going to say no.
Of course, I know the answer. What do you think the answer is? Who do you think's ranked number 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the computer rankings?
Well,
Liberty,
Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama.
Nope. Michigan,
Oregon.
Washington. Michigan
Georgia.
1, Washington 2,
Georgia,
Alabama 3, and Florida State 4. You guys okay with that?
No, I'm not okay with that.
Hello, Texas head-to-head doesn't matter because the computers don't weigh that. It was just jumbled in.
Well, wait a minute. That it puts an undefeated team in there, an undefeated champion in there. It leaves the one-loss team out.
Yeah, it leaves Texas out, who beat Alabama head-to-head. I'm not arguing Texas
and
shouldn't
smoked
have been in,
OSU.
but the computers under the BCS. This is BCS. If we were still in that system, it would have been Michigan, Washington, Alabama, Florida State, Texas, Georgia, and Ohio State. That's the ranking of the top 7. So what system is better? That's what I'm asking. 12-team playoff. That's where we're going.
We are where we are. So let me ask you a question. Did the committee choose the 4 best teams?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
All right. Hold on. Let's pause for a second. The committee chose the 4 best teams, right?
Correct.
Is Washington, Texas, or Michigan better than Georgia? No.
I mean, it would be interesting.
Thank you.
It's
on not the 4 best teams.
On the neutral site, it would be interesting. I'm not saying they're not.
Hold on. What's the number one?
We left out one of the 4 best teams.
House. Go back to the guidelines. Go back to the rules they have to follow. What's the number one most important thing?
Conference championships.
Conference championship. They did not win their conference championship. That's why they're not in that top 4. So that doesn't work either. That's why when Cincinnati win it, everyone's like, "Oh, Cincinnati," and it was split. Alabama.
You know what this all comes down to? It all comes down to this: money has ruined college sports. It's ruined college sports. Well, you know what? And I'll tell you, I was texting with you guys about the number of people who go into the friggin' transfer portal too. You got the quarterback from Ohio State who they lose a game, so he says, "Well, I better get out of here. I'm going to go find somewhere better to play."
And the quarterback from OU today.
And
his coach is dogging him.
He's going to declare.
Yeah, the whole story though after Ohio State lost to Michigan was how Coach Day screwed up and picked the wrong quarterback.
He won't commit to him for the bowl game. He won't commit to him for the bowl game.
Why would he now after he's in the transfer portal?
College sports, look, it's a professional league at this point with no rules and a bunch of old white men making decisions about television contracts in a smoky room. It really is. That's what college football is at this point.
Okay. Would you have said the same thing?
It's always been that way.
Would you have said the same thing if Texas had been left out and Florida State had been put in?
Probably.
Really? Okay.
College football is always
this isn't just an anti-Alabama rant. Because I think it is.
It's not just an I'm saying college football is a joke. It's a joke.
You've been saying that you're not new on this. You've been saying that for a while.
I know.
You're like, why should I be interested? Tell me why I should be interested. Hey, if you're not interested in this four,
it's not amateurism anymore.
Don't watch.
It's not amateurism anymore. We talked about the Jimbo Fisher thing on 2 pods ago about the amount of money that could be going to students. It's just, and I get the argument, that keeps other athletic programs going at the school. Bullshit. This is just a money grab. It's a bunch of old white guys who have nothing to live for other than Sunday football or Saturday football, excuse me. And they just are so committed to seeing these schools play football. They don't give a shit about education. They don't give a shit about developing these young men into players. And this is the pinnacle of it right here. This is it. It was a money grab, and that's what they decided. What is most eyeballs in this country want to watch? What are we going to get the most people tuning in for? And these are the games.
Who picks the committee? Who picks the selection committee? Anyone?
There are more FSU fans in this country than a lot of other schools. There would have been plenty of eyeballs and money to be made from FSU.
They could not do this. Listen, they just created a mega conference in the SEC. They could not screw over the SEC. They couldn't do it. They couldn't. The SEC is the most powerful conference in sports. There might be the most powerful unit in all of sports in college for sure. Maybe the pros too. It's a powerful effing conference.
And so the SEC champion, you're not going to have the SEC champion in the Final Four when they've won 4 out of 6 of the last. It was never going to happen.
To your point, though, Pope, I think the conversation would be a lot easier if Georgia had won because they'd be undefeated. They're bumping out an undefeated team. That would be more palatable.
Be mad at Georgia for losing.
Yeah, Georgia messes
the whole thing up.
I am. The only thing that could help all of this is Michigan winning 38-3. So please, we should all root for that. All 5 of us.
And Florida State steamrolling Georgia in the game.
Exactly.
By the way, this is, and my FSU fans are starting to do this shit, and it's such bullshit. They're like, well, they don't care. They don't want to be there. Bullshit. Florida State wants to show
Mike Norvell will definitely
show up more than anything in this world to prove a point. And by the way, guess who's not incentivized to be there? Georgia. Watch what happens. Georgia is going to blow the fucking doors off of FSU and show the world that they didn't belong. And Georgia doesn't want to be in that game.
I can't wait to bet you on that game.
I can't fucking wait.
I can't wait to bet you on that game.
I will take.
And I can't wait to bet Pope on Michigan, Alabama.
All day long. Just get.
All right.
Let's.
So now, are we done with the top 4? Because I got a little bit bone to pick here.
Oh, no way.
No, he switched hats. He switched to another team.
Switched hats in the middle of it.
No way.
He's going to the school he actually.
If he does this, I have another punchable face of the week this week.
Come on, why wouldn't you? Looking very punchable. Why would the committee, after they just did what they did, why would they then put Liberty, who had the worst schedule in the entire college football and undefeated. Yeah, they didn't play one Power 5 school. Why would they put them in the Fiesta Bowl against the Oregon Ducks? I love Milk. You're like, hey, 1 minute you're playing for Natty, and the next minute you got to play Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl.
Liberty.
I mean, what a joke. SMU manhandled Tulane. I was very surprised, House. I did not expect that. You can't say that they shouldn't have been the number, whatever, 23 and got the non-Power 5 berth to the New Year's Six. I think that's a joke. They didn't apply the same logic, whatever. But anyway, I had to get that off my chest.
You got baby split. That's the end of the day. You got baby split. SMU is a very good team. They're 50 times better than Liberty. It's a very, very good football team that won that championship. And
with a backup quarterback.
He's excellent. I mean, if he hangs around, he's excellent. You got baby split by the committee or whoever decides.
Losses? They have 2 losses, right?
They have 2 losses.
Yeah, they lost to Oklahoma in the fourth quarter on the road. They were tied going in, and they lost to TCU early on the road. Wasn't that close, but
they were 8-0 in conference.
Yeah, I mean, look,
they won on the road.
I'm excited about SMU using that kind of as a little grudge going into the ACC. They're playing Boston College in the fucking Fenway Bowl. I mean, that's their reward. They got to go to Boston in the holidays to play in the Fenway Stadium.
I'm sure you'll be there to support your team.
Yes,
I would, except I'm not going to be here.
Oh, I see.
He's going to be at watching Alabama.
No,
so let's introduce our fans to the acronym NARF. Not a real fan. NARF.
That's been trademarked by House, by the way. All right, we will come back and talk more bowl games as we get closer to the actual games themselves. So not the end of it, but I don't know. I'll probably log off for those parts of the conversations at this point, since it's just a big fucking Ponzi scheme anyway. But
Jesus,
let's move over to at least what's an obvious and in your face money grab all the time, the NFL. House,
do you guys see that Green Bay Kansas City game last night? I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I think Jordan
sucks.
I told you before the year that Jordan Love was going to turn out to be a good quarterback.
Right. Rooster, you were
Can
right.
we please stop talking about fucking Green Bay?
He's got the tools. Yeah.
Really?
Okay.
That's not what
they're going to make the playoffs.
Let's talk about Kenny Pickett's injury. Let's talk about Kenny Pickett's injury.
No, I don't want to talk about that either.
Getting closer though. Right.
No.
Mike Evans looked great yesterday, by the way.
I know.
Thank you.
You want to know why I have Simon behind me, Simone? Because she showed up for that game and rooted on her husband, and apparently has more juice than Tay-Tay.
Oh.
She's a curse.
You leave Tay-Tay out of this.
She's a curse.
You want to know what's wrong with the Chiefs? They've been swift boated.
That team has gone downhill since Tay-Tay's come on the scene.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about the Eagles and the Niners? Please.
Well, you turned it over to House. What did you?
Can I just say? When I was at the Bucs game yesterday, they kept throwing highlights, and there were a lot of 49er highlights that kept coming in every single 10 minutes, touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. It was really exciting.
There were a lot.
Did you get annoyed by it?
5 or 6 in a row, right?
6.
6 series in a row.
He's just running everywhere. Debo.
That game could have gone in a whole different direction if the Eagles had converted on the first 2 series instead of kicking field goals.
Or the rest of defensive pass interference.
House, you were saying that you had a problem with the play calling. They passed the ball well down to the red zone. What's your gripe with the play calling on those first 2 series?
Well, they're really missing Dallas Goedert. I mean, they are missing a tight end. It's a full option. That's a very good option out of their offense. I don't know. One of you guys said it in the beginning of the year. I think it might have been Bison.
It was me.
Swift. I shrugged off No, I shrugged off Shane Steichen, our offensive coordinator, leaving and going to the Indianapolis Colts, and he was replaced. And he was replaced by Brian Johnson, and Bison thought it was a big deal, and I shrugged it off. It's clearly a big deal. I mean, the Colts with Gardner Minshew are going to probably make the playoffs in the guy's first year as a coach, with Jonathan Taylor missing a hand,
that guy,
and and Gardner Minshew is quarterback. Brian Johnson has at his disposal A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, and this team is struggling to score points for large stretches. And at a certain point, it's got to come back to the coordinator.
But House, what about your defense? I mean, your defense got steamrolled.
A lot of missed tackles I was seeing.
So here's the deal. Against the 49ers, I'm not sure any team measures up with them. Maybe I'm very interested to see this Baltimore Ravens game. I think they've got a game against the Ravens still this year, because if you don't have good linebacker play that can watch Debo, that can watch McCaffrey, that can watch Kittle, you are toast. You are absolutely toast. And we suffered really bad injuries. Nakobe Dean went down. Cunningham went down. So last night, we started 3 linebackers that were cut by our team earlier in the season. We had to bring them back because we were out of linebackers. And Howie Roseman has never drafted linebackers other than Nakobe Dean as a priority. He just doesn't think they're important in the NFL. And he found out big time last night, which is why today we signed Shaq Leonard. But
there was 2 things that I was watching the game. First of all, there was a tunnel screen, which I had never heard before. And basically, I mean, if you talk about how a play should run to Debo, like the Niners linemen all shoot out. They basically like fan out like this, and it creates a tunnel to the pylon, right? One of those screens to Debo, it was unbelievable, where they called it a tunnel screen, and you could actually see like an actual tunnel open up. It was so amazing to watch. And then the other thing that was pretty cool to watch, they had some really good footage of Lane Johnson going against Bosa.
So
and just 2
that was
studs.
A war. That was a war last night.
House, you were at the game, right?
Yep.
So you didn't see, I mean, some of the footage that they were showing during the game was, I mean, it was just impressive. Oh yeah, it was awesome to watch. It was really good. That was good stuff.
Look, House,
the way the Niners offense played yesterday, I'm not sure there are any teams in the NFL that would win that game, but they don't play that way every game. I mean, you just hit them at the worst possible time.
I mean, they
did.
Dallas.
Then they lost 3 straight.
I know you're going to be surprised, but I'm actually going to defend you on this, because I tend to agree. I'm not necessarily saying there's a conspiracy, George Soros type thing, but playing 3 games in 13 days, clearly in tough games, like comebacks in the fourth quarter, I think you guys definitely wore down a lot quicker. And San Francisco came in with a chip. And you know what that chip was? They felt like they were legitimate NFC champions last year, but for Purdy's injury, and they played like it. And so I was not surprised, maybe a little bit surprised by the score. I wasn't surprised that San Francisco won. I thought you guys were set up for failure. Other than playing at home, I didn't think Philly had much of a chance in that game.
What's up next for the Eagles? They're playing another team with a chip and 10 days rest.
I know, right?
I mean, on the road. On the road.
Yeah. House, the Eagles fans were pretty they're just pretty Eagles fanish about, when everybody used to say, well, if Purdy hadn't gone down in the championship game, it would have been different. That was that was just the Eagles, the whole world against the Eagles fans. It's got to raise an eyebrow, doesn't it? I mean, after that.
We can say, let's just say the 49ers lost to the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl. Or why don't we just say the 49ers won the Super Bowl last year? Let's just go there. They would have had Purdy and they would have won it. So let's just give the 49ers their fake effing ring. In the meantime, in the first quarter, when Purdy went in the pocket, he's a piece of garbage. I mean, we ate them alive in the first quarter, and then Shanahan. Yeah, they had -6 yards in the first quarter.
They did.
They had -6 yards.
True.
Four
Should have been up
touchdowns, is that right?
14-0.
And then they went
Shanahan-
6 touchdowns in a row.
Shanahan,
Four,
who is a
right?
genius of a coach, said, "We're not putting this guy back in the pocket another time. It's going to be bubble and tunnel screens the rest of the game and giving the ball to McCaffrey, and we're going to go right at their linebackers." He made an in-game adjustment that was perfect, and they destroyed us.
I've got a question for you.
It wasn't Purdy. It was Shanahan. It was not Purdy.
We haven't talked about this. Do you
There
put
are
any
NFL
blame on Jalen Hurts at all?
Yes.
Do you think he's just? I want you to talk about
Yes.
Jalen Hurts because I don't think he's that great. I'm just throwing
Okay,
it out
well,
there.
Jalen Hurts is great.
He is very overrated. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're an idiot. But besides
Okay.
being an idiot,
I am. Look at
You're
his
an
numbers
idiot.
this year.
Jalen
They're very.
Hurts.
Baker Mayfield has better numbers.
Okay. You must be baking on something. Jalen Hurts just took the Eagles back in like 4 consecutive games, down 10 points, put the team completely on his back. Last night, Jalen Hurts probably had 5 or 6 times where, I'm not even kidding you, he might have had 10 seconds in the pocket. His offensive line was incredible in pass protection, and we've suffered in pass protection. No one was open, and he held on to the ball and took sacks.
Yeah.
Right. One time
Brian
he fell
Johnson
down.
did a terrible job running a bunch of fly routes. There was no underneath route for any of our receivers to run. Of course, we didn't have a tight end to run a route, but it was terrible play calling. And Jalen's fault last night was holding onto the ball. Get rid of the ball. Throw it away.
So would you say
Throw it
that
away.
last night Jalen was just a guy?
I think he's just a guy.
He was in the MVP conversation until last night, and I still
And he
think
still
he
is. He still is.
Yeah, he still is.
If one of the two quarterbacks plays well next Monday night or whatever it is, Sunday, Monday night, if one of the two plays exceptionally well between the Cowboys and the Eagles, they're going to win the MVP in that game.
All right.
That's my prediction.
I want to give you a lot of credit. I feel like there was a time not too long ago where you would have not been available for this podcast.
He's
given the
evolved,
outcome of that
hasn't he,
game.
fellas?
You've evolved.
Listen, Listen,
about
you
it.
douchebags. We're 10-1. We have the best record in the NFL. Screw
Wait,
off.
10-2.
That's right.
I'm-
That's right.
10-2. You're 10-2.
10-2.
And to Pope's
All right, what
point,
else do we need
if
to-
you
what
had
else do
gone
we-
into this 6-game stretch and could have guaranteed that you'd go 5-1, you probably would have taken it.
For
And
sure.
You're going to beat this. I mean, the Cowboys have only beaten the Seahawks, who are a team in decline. So,
All right, what else do we have to talk about from week 13 in the NFL?
Milk's an idiot. And let's
I
see.
mean, are we not worried about the Chiefs again? I mean, we keep saying
The
that
Chiefs
every
suck. What's wrong with the
Chiefs.
Chiefs? Why do
Yeah,
they
the
suck? You know what?
terrible.
Taylor
They don't
Swift.
even
Got
receivers.
screwed last night.
They don't have any
Coordinators
receivers.
matter. Coordinators
Bad
matter.
call.
Well,
They had a bad
coordinators
call.
and
Listen.
receivers who can get open and catch the ball.
Yeah, they're missing
Yeah.
their coordinator.
Their
I
too.
mean, A,
receivers
get
are
open, and B, catch the
terrible.
ball.
They're terrible. Who's that guy the Giants drafted? I can't even remember his name. I hate him so much I put him out of my mind.
Evan Neal.
No, the guy
Oh.
from Florida. The receiver
Tony.
from Florida.
Oh,
Kadarius
Kadarius
Toney?
Toney.
Jadarius
No.
Toney.
Tony?
That guy doesn't know how to run a pattern. You know, he's dumb. He's got bad hands, and he's the best receiver on their team. Best
He
wide
might be.
receiver.
And by the way, the more you see Tyreek Hill play, and I will admit, I thought the guy's a speed guy. You know, maybe they let him go because he was getting a little older, and you lose a step. And if you're a speed guy and you lose that step, then you don't have a lot more. Holy shit, that guy is. I mean, he's unbelievable.
He should be considered in the MVP
He should
conversation.
be. He should be.
And this is a year where he might be.
A lot of
But
people
they-
made fun of me when
the
I picked
Chiefs-
him in fantasy football. A lot of people in this podcast.
I don't know what you're talking about. The Chiefs,
talking
though,
about,
big
Mill?
trouble. Big trouble for the Chiefs.
I
All right,
think
we gotta
the
do,
I think the
we gotta do
AFC
Bucks.
AFC number one seed is going to come down to New Year's Eve when we have the Miami at Baltimore. That's going to decide it, I think.
Be for it. I could definitely be for it.
Yeah, Miami seems to be getting better.
And let's
How
see
do we
what
do in
Baltimore
Plaxico?
does. Yeah.
Does anybody think that the Patriots threw that game against the Chargers for the draft pick?
What were your thoughts on that game, Rooster?
How do you score 0 points? God damn it!
How do you score 6 if you're the Chargers?
How do you score 6?
You're 5.5 point favorites, and you cover the spread.
By the way,
6 points.
We did have a score. We did have a scoregami yesterday.
Oh,
in the Redskins game.
Commanders Dolphins 45-15. First time we've ever had a score 45-15 in the
That is
history of the
shocking.
NFL.
I should have stuck with my original Plaxico last week when I was
Origami.
going to pick them.
Yeah. So
can I just
real
quick?
Yeah, please.
Real quick before we get off this, I think congratulations are in order for Mr. Mike Evans. This guy is the most underrated wide receiver to ever play the game.
Yes, he is.
10th straight year of 1,000 yards. He already got it last night. Only one other person did that over 10 years. Who is it?
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice did it 14 years straight. The guy's incredible.
I love Mike Evans. He's great.
And we're in a contract dispute. We won't re-sign him because we're idiots.
Consistent with its fans. Okay. How'd we do in Plaxico?
Yeah.
I know I won.
You did?
Oh, I did.
Week 13. House was big on the Titans and unfortunately lost because the Titans were getting 2.5 against the Colts, and the Colts beat them.
Lost in overtime.
Yeah. Bison is to be determined because he's got Jacksonville tonight.
Wow.
Ooh, Monday night action.
Yeah.
Mr.
Keep
Pope
the winning streak going.
Mr. Pope has gone from the lead to losing 4 out of the last 5 games. I don't know what's going on, Pope. You were so hot early on.
I mean,
he had the Steelers card. Yeah, right. Who could have guessed, right?
I mean, Mike Tomlin said that's one of the most embarrassing performances he's ever had as a head coach. I mean, it was, what the fuck was that?
I don't know. I don't get it. I'm happy. I'm happy anytime the Cardinals win, I'm happy, but that's crazy. Milkman, out of spite, took the 49ers and it paid off. He's got the W, so now
I know what he's taking this week then.
Oh, you know it? I can't.
Milk ended his 3-game losing streak and took a W. And I picked the Cowboys over the Seahawks. Cowboys won but didn't cover, so I took a loss. So in the last since week 9, when I've been keeping track of this, we need to catch up with House's records and figure out who's in the league. If Bison wins tonight, he's got 4 straight wins.
If Biden wins, Milk is off the podcast.
Bison's going for 4 wins in a row. The anti-MAGA Mexico Biden.
That's
coming from the oldest SMQB.
Oh my God.
So awesome.
All right, so let's talk about week 14, fellas.
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I'm going to take the Cowboys 3.5. I feel good about this game. They win at home. I'm not saying they'll win anything other than that, but they'd like to win at home.
I'll take that bet too. Put me down for the Cowboys.
Yeah, Milk.
Son of a bitch. All right. It leaves me no choice. I'm going to take the Falcons minus 2.5 at home against the Bucks. You forced me into it, but I'm going to win now this week.
What's the spread there?
Falcons minus 2.5 at home.
Bison, what do you have?
I think I'm taking the Steelers.
Oh my God!
Even 6 to the Pats.
What are you doing?
You think the Pats are going to win that game?
Oh, that might be.
Who knows?
How many won in a row?
Who's
Mac
playing
Jones
quarterback?
Still a quarterback?
Who's playing quarterback? I think Trace McSorley is playing quarterback for the Steelers.
Oh, is he out?
Yeah.
He's not playing?
Yeah, he's out.
Pickett?
Does that change your bet?
Pickett's in deep trouble.
Yeah, I'll revise then.
Revise and extend.
You're concerned about New England? They didn't score a point.
I know. Well,
it's the Chargers.
I'll take Jacksonville giving 3 to Cleveland.
All
That's
right.
good.
That's a good bet.
All right. I am going to take the Texans giving 6, the Jets, who are trying to turn to Zach Wilson, and he's saying, no, I'm entering the transfer portal. I refuse to play.
He won't play for
refusing
them.
to play.
That's too funny. Too funny.
Zach Wilson
By the way,
to the transfer portal.
That's the
That's
biggest
great.
train wreck of a team out of anyone in the NFL. The Jets.
Jeez.
Holy shit.
All right. Is that it?
Listen,
Anything
can we
else,
talk
Doug?
about how overrated Juan Soto is and why there's so much noise?
Here we
Can
go.
we talk about what is the point of all these teams clamoring for this clown?
I don't even
He
know
looks
where
good
to
when he
start
walks.
with you. I don't even know where
He
to
gets
start.
a lot of walks. He gets a lot of walks, right?
Do you know what his numbers were last year?
A lot of walks.
I mean, this year that you said that he wasn't that great in, first of all, he played in 162 games. You know how many
That's a
they
lot.
play every year? They play
162.
162. Yeah.
Well, if
He
you
had
don't make the playoffs, you
97
only make
runs.
a play 162.
156 hits, 35 homers, 109 RBIs, 132 walks.
A lot of walks.
His OPS was 930, which is like top 8. I mean, he was in like the top 8 of every offensive category basically last year. I mean, I don't even really know where to start with you on this stuff. His slugging percentage is 519. His on base percentage is 410. 410. I mean, he is. I guess I'm not really sure why you don't like him. Every statistic that matters in baseball now, he is trending towards being one of the top 10 hitters in the history of the game. What is it that you don't like about him?
I just went through the top 5 of every leader in the National League. He's only in the top 5 in runs batted in.
Okay, I said top 8.
All right. I think he's very, very good. But like people are putting him in the breadth of like what
Ted
everything's
Williams?
about. Yeah, that's silliness.
Trout?
Trout, Ted
Acuna?
Williams, Ohtani, Acuna.
He is in that category. His offensive numbers are in those categories. I mean,
But
what is the most
I thought you're
important
the guy
offensive
that
number?
you're the guy that thinks that like championships and winning matters.
Well, he's got a World
We
Series.
won
at
a
age
Didn't we just do
25.
this?
He's a rookie.
He's got a World Series at age 25. How many
See,
does
that's
Harper have?
that's what I like about him for the Yankees. He seems to thrive under the big lights. I mean, he came alive during the World Series. He
did?
could handle the heat of New
He
York.
had 3 homers in the World Series and hit like 350.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was your pitching that won.
He also hit a home run right after Rendon hit one. He hit the tying home run in Game 5 of the NLCS. I'm sorry, the NLDS.
Maybe it's just like his annoying swagger.
I think you just don't like him.
He
I
hit
don't.
35 home
As
runs
opposed
last
to
season?
Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
He doesn't have swagger like Soto.
Oh,
Soto-
Oh,
Hey,
He does all
Soto
this
had
stuff when he comes
156
to the
hits last
plate.
season.
I'm not
Who had
saying
150?
this. He has swagger. Who cares? It's fine. But
Milk,
you
go
can't
ahead.
say
What are
he
you
doesn't.
saying?
35 home runs last season?
For who?
Yeah.
156 hits?
Yeah, and 132 walks.
Pretty solid.
It's an amazing season. I mean,
Yeah.
he's put
tied
together.
for 21st in hits.
Yeah, but he had 132 walks. See, if you just look at a guy's batting average, then you're going to look at Soto as a mediocre player, better than average player, if you just look at batting average. But batting average doesn't mean anything anymore. And you got to look at things like on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS, because those are telling the real story. I mean, average takes walks out of it, and a walk is as good as a single, right? In most cases. So, when that's why everybody looks at slugging and OPS and on-base percentage now, because the idea is to get on base and collect as many bases as you can. And since he's been in Major League Baseball, very few players do it as well as he does.
What
And
would
in
you
the
be
history
willing
of the
to
game,
what would you be willing to give up to get him back?
I'd give up probably what we got for him. I'd take
And
him back
more?
in a heartbeat.
Would you mortgage the franchise to get him back?
Probably because he's so young. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the only reason to say no is we're so far away from being a contender. That's the only reason you would say no to that. It's like we don't need a piece or two. We're really young,
Right.
but
Right.
I think that's a guy that you could have rebuilt around him. Any team that gets him is going to instantly be better. I mean, the reason the Padres didn't make the playoffs wasn't because of the season that Juan Soto had. Soto had a damn good season last year.
So
The
where will
question
he
is,
end
where's
up?
he going to go? Is he going to end up
Yeah.
in Toronto? I
God,
can
hope
handle
not.
that.
God, that would be
No.
awful.
That would be terrible. Ugh.
Oh, we don't.
Suddenly he
Yeah, we
looks
don't
a
want him
lot
going
better.
to
He looks
Moose
a lot
Jaw.
better to Rooster and Milk right now, huh?
Milk, where would you rather have him? The Blue Jays or the Yankees?
Blue Jays, I guess, if I have to pick
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
Jeez.
look, Soto's. You guys love to pick on me about Soto. I get
Just
it,
me. Just me.
but really, what's going on with Ohtani? I mean, we're not going to know anything about Ohtani, and that's really the one that everybody wants to know, right?
He's going to the Dodgers, don't you think?
But what about the Cubs?
That makes sense.
What
Why
about
would he
the
want to go to the
Braves?
Cubs?
Well, did you hear the Dodgers were trying to pitch him on, we'll pay you X until you can show us that you can pitch again, and then we'll pay you Y? I mean, you think that's going on
Smart.
with other teams?
It's
Can
smart.
they do that?
Sure.
Why
Structure
not?
a contract any way you want.
It's smart.
Yeah, I mean, are you paying for a Cy Young winner? Or are you paying for an MVP, home run, an RBI guy?
And is Anaheim fully out of this?
Not officially.
Yeah.
Well, they act like they are. I mean, they
would
pretty
think they
much
are.
screwed up at the end of the year if they think they want to keep Ohtani.
Yeah.
So I don't think Soto has any interest in going to the Toronto. Do you? I mean, he strikes me as the kind of guy who thought San Diego was a little too boring.
Who'd want to go to Canada? God,
But wait, I'm
that's terrible.
I feel like I'm hearing conflicting things. Is this required to happen by trade or not? Because I keep hearing about trade for Soto. I thought is he under contract for San Diego?
They have another year on him.
Okay, they do.
Oh.
Okay.
Ooh.
They have another year on him. So it would be a trade.
Okay.
And they want starting pitching.
They got to trade him. They got too many holes.
Why are they getting rid of Blake Snell? Too expensive?
How much money are they spending?
Their payroll's out of control.
Their
It's
payroll
out of
is in the
control.
top 3.
And they're not getting any sort of return. I love Snell.
I think the story of the offseason may not be the Japanese player Shohei Ohtani, but the other couple of Japanese players that are thinking about coming over, which I think
Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
Yeah, I think the Yankees have a beat on him.
Yeah.
Domo Regardum, what?
Sure they do.
Yoshimoto Yamamoto.
Yeah.
You make a good point, but I think it's hard to say that Ohtani's not going to be the story. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Yes, those guys are going to be really fascinating to watch and see how they develop in the majors. But Ohtani's still where it's at. They got to get Ohtani to the Eastern time zone.
I don't think he's going to the Eastern time zone. He's so West Coast, dude.
I know, but
Dodgers
baseball's
makes
got a
perfect
lot of-
sense. And then
The Dodgers, it makes too much sense.
Yeah.
Cubs?
Cubs would be crazy. I just can't imagine them pulling that off.
Oh,
No.
I can't either. I
He
can't
hit
imagine
600
him
home
going
runs
there.
at Wrigley.
But the last update we heard was that he's not going to be signing with a team during the winter meetings. Is that right?
Yeah,
Right.
that was today. It's today's report.
It's going to be a big contract.
It's probably not going to Rays, right, Milk?
Does he have
Son
like
of
a younger
bitch.
brother we can sign? like in elementary school.
Tobey Ohtani?
We could afford him.
All right. Anything else on hot stove?
No.
All right. Anybody have a punch? Was there anybody punchable this week? I can't remember if there was anybody who might be punchable.
There are a few.
I
House,
have a
you had
punch.
one. Go ahead. Go ahead, House.
I never, ever come to the rescue of LeBron James. I'm not a big LeBron fan, but if you guys didn't see this audio that they actually found between Ime Udoka and LeBron in the Rockets versus the Lakers game, good for LeBron. LeBron does cry for a lot of calls, which is fine. And Udoka, who's a coach, says, "Would you stop bitching?" And LeBron says, "Hey man, like we're adults here. Like choose a different word." And he's like, "Well, stop your bitch ass, whatever." And LeBron's like, "Come on, man. Like you're bigger than that. Like that's not a cool word to use these days. Like choose a different word." And Udoka would not let down. And eventually they both got tossed out of the game. And look, I'm sure banter like that goes on all the time. This guy, Udoka, he has a little bit of a past. He was a coach that had some impropriety with the female staffer. It's probably not the best time to be like, when a guy's saying, let's just be adults in the room. You want to fight about something else or you want to use different words, go for it. But I just thought Udoka was a real punk in that moment. And he might be a good coach, but doesn't seem like the cleanest guy. And for that reason, I'm just going to take LeBron's right hand and give him an uppercut.
Sounds like your LeBron is thinking about politics after he retires.
Maybe.
All right, that's a good one. House, do you have a mouth guard?
No,
you might want to put it in for the rest of these punches.
What the hell?
I'm just saying.
No way. You better not punch this guy.
Big Dom the Python.
Oh
you
no!
better not.
Oh no!
Big Dom.
Dom is getting punched.
By the
Big
way,
Dom's getting 4 punches.
By the way, I can give Dom every single one of your email addresses and your home addresses.
Tell
so
Dom
go for it.
DeSandro where to
whatever.
find
ahead.
Bring it.
Yo.
You go ahead now. Go ahead.
All right.
Now let me hear.
Milk, did you finally see it yet?
I still haven't seen it. I need to see this.
You want to
House, you have.
Give the quick story of what happened.
Somebody tee
All
it
right.
up.
So Dre Greenlaw, the linebacker for the 49ers, tackles Devonta Smith out of bounds and in the process picks him up and slams him.
Okay. I want to make sure that's part of the facts.
Rightfully got an unnecessary roughness penalty called against him.
Okay.
Seemed like an okay tackle.
This guy on the sideline for the Eagles, who's not a coach, an assistant coach, a trainer, he's the head of security, has no business being where he was, steps up and puts his hands on the chest of Greenlaw and shoves him. So Greenlaw, jabs his finger into Dom's face and immediately gets ejected. So here's and the excuse at first was, well, this guy's the head of our security. Well, what does that mean? If there's a fight out on the field, he's going to run out there and join in the fight and start punching people?
Depends what happens in the fight.
Really, it depends.
It depends. The consequences of allowing some guy who means nothing to the outcome of the game to get a star linebacker thrown out of the game is bullshit. No way Greenlaw should have been thrown out of that game. This 450-pound monster of a man comes up and shoves him. Of course he's going to stick his hands in his face. The Eagles should not have this guy on the sideline.
Yeah, what is he?
Fucking control.
Why
was he Sirianni's bodyguard?
Look how close Greenlaw is in this picture to Sirianni. He's protecting his coach.
It's because Sirianni's in his face. He's a bitch.
That was after Sirianni came over. Why is this guy so close to the game? What is he doing there?
Hope just went Ime Udoka on this pod.
Who is this guy anyway? First of all, House, you probably don't even know this, but the numbnut broadcasters, whoever they were, who were they for this game? I don't remember. But They were
Greg
talking
Olson
about how he gave
Greg
them
Olson.
restaurant recommendations.
Yeah.
Before this even happened, this guy had more airtime than I think Devontae Smith had up to that point in the game. And they're talking about the restaurant recommendations and what a guy is. And then the next thing you know, they're like, who is it down there in the middle? They're probably going, oh shit, this is the guy that we were talking about earlier about what a good guy is. And now
the
the
refs are part of this punch. The refs should not have thrown out the player.
Oh my God.
You can't throw out a player because some schmo on the sidelines provokes him. It's just unfair. Otherwise, every team's going to pull this now.
I think they scored 5 consecutive touchdowns after this play. That's part one.
It did
spark them. That's
because Greg Olson was like, "Well, this is going to spark the they got Philly all fired up and their fans, and they're going to respond." And then San Francisco just steamrolled them.
The best thing to me was that Big Dom has a forearm sleeve on for some reason. And when they threw him out of the game and he's waddling down the sideline to get down to the tunnal, he's got this big black forearm sleeve on.
The NFL needs more
his official title?
This is the backstory of Dom DeSandro. The NFL needs more characters like Dom. Dom was brought on to the team by Andy Reid years and years ago, when there were lots of players that were getting in all kinds of trouble, doing all kinds of dumb off-field shit. And so Andy Reid brings on Dom, and he's the enforcer. He just makes sure
he's a fixer.
Hey,
you got your own Mr. Wolf.
So Dom just stayed on with the team, and he now, he greets every single player at the airport. He is the team's bouncer. And
sounds like their mascot.
He's great. By the way, if you didn't see last night, so I guess I don't really know what the origins of this are, but the NFL coaches now are wearing flags like Belichick's got like Croatia or whatever. But Sirianni and Dom both have a big Italian flag on the side of their hat, and Dom's got the necklace of the actual Italy boot hanging from around his neck. And it's just great. It is so good for football. Listen, you got in the coach's face. Look how close Greenlaw is to Sirianni. Dom did the right thing.
Again, why is Sirianni in the player's face?
He just threw his star player down the ground. One of your Alabama guys. You should come to defense of this.
Hey, I played football with a guy in high school who had Dom's job in the NBA.
Yeah.
I think he started out with the Celtics, but I forget which team he was with when this happened. But he was doing the meet the players and make sure he babysat them when they all went out in the limo. And he was in the limo by himself waiting on these players to come out of a club, and there was a drive-by shooting into the limo with an automatic weapon, and he got shot 5 or 6 times. It took him years to come back from it.
Wow.
I saw him. He's fine now, but it's a dangerous job.
The enforcer. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let Dom know that you all punched him. Everybody still have their hand up to punch Dom? Just want to make sure.
Not me.
I think I could take that fat fuck.
Hey, we'd love to have Dom come on the pod and talk to us.
Dom on.
Come on,
bring him on the pod.
Yeah, we'll give him
come on. Tell us why you need that
some time.
forearm brace.
He's
a little too much. Here. You know what?
All right. Any other punches? All right. Who's got a lasso?
I've got one. I would commend to all of you an article that our buddy Jerry Bembry recommended on Facebook by Ashwana Kumar, who writes for ESPN.com. She did an article on Cami Minor, who is the daughter of baby Jordan, Harold Minor. And in this article, you learn a lot about Harold Minor. I don't know about you guys, but I assumed that he was just a disappointment. He came out with all this hype out of USC, baby Jordan. Apparently he was at some high school camp and Jordan challenged him to one-on-one, game to 5, and Harold Minor was up 4-0 until Jordan came back and beat him 5-4. And I just thought he kind of flamed out in the pros, but then I was reminded by this article that And he won the slam dunk competition his rookie season. I think it was like 93 for the Heat. He won it a second time, which I think only one other person, maybe Neek, did that. And he didn't flame out. He hurt his knee in his first season, and it just never was right after that. And the poor guy was just heartbroken because basketball was his life, and retired and was sad about it and gained a bunch of weight and got married. And he and his wife had this girl named Cammie, and he has devoted his life to training Cammie, who is a volleyball player and is now playing for Stanford. And he's probably one of the top, I don't know, 3 in the country. It played on the Olympics. Anyway, I'm just telling you, read this article. It's called The Prodigy and the Protege, The Pain of Baby Jordan and the Power of Cammie Minor. And I think you'll conclude that there's worse things in life than being a superstar father, which is what he is. And it's just a really nice read. You should read it.
It's great.
Cool. Can you text that link to us?
Sure.
We'll post it too for all of our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Any more lassos? That's a good one, Rooster. All right, who's got a buzzer beater?
I got one. Mark Cuban sold his majority interest in the Dallas Mavericks to Miriam Adelson, who is the head of the Las Vegas Sands company out of Las Vegas.
Didn't we cover this last episode?
No.
I think we did.
So. I don't know.
Anyway,
well, anyway, the stories are coming out now trying to figure out what exactly Cuban has been up to. And it looks like there's going to be a play towards the Texas legislature to try to get gambling passed so that we can get a Venetian-like resort. And we may have actually talked about it last week. The reason I'm bringing it up is because I was actually at the Venetian this weekend at the Sphere to see U2. And I would love to see that, kind of atmosphere and have a Sphere-like, arena in Dallas. And so hopefully Cuban is up to that.
That's exactly what he says his plan is.
Except the Sphere is owned by Dolan, the New York Knicks. MSG.
Yeah. No, he wants it to be a Sands property in Dallas, and relocate the Mavs stadium to or the Coliseum to that complex.
Yeah.
And be part owner of a bigger thing than just the Dallas Mavericks.
It's interesting because Dallas doesn't exactly scream party city, like destination city, right? So if they build something big like that, are they going to is Dallas going to become a destination city to go to? It's not exactly Vegas.
Nashville wasn't. Well, Nashville wasn't always a destination city, and now it is.
That's the risk they're taking.
Yeah.
All right. What other buzzer beaters?
I know you took a tough one in college basketball, although I think it's going to raise their profile for Georgetown. I think college basketball is going to be really fun this season. I mean, I think it's fun every single season, but it's very early. But some of the very best who you wouldn't expect to lose are losing. I think Purdue took an unexpected one on the chin from Northwestern, and Marquette took a loss. And, I just think there's been a lot of fun early on in the season
tomorrow night
that suggests that we are in store for a really greater parity March Madness again this year. I'm already very intrigued in this year's college basketball season because of how even it is, because there's no runaway. That's my buzzer beater.
We need to start planning our March Madness podcast.
Yeah.
Where we're going to be and
let's do it.
Rooster, why do you have UConn as your background? It's something happening?
I think we're looking at a repeat champion. That's why.
Oh, here we go.
Is there a game tomorrow night, Rooster?
There is a big game. Don't know who it is though. I don't know.
That would be North Carolina and UConn at the Jimmy V Classic in the city.
Ooh. I will say
that'll be a good one.
Before my buzzer beater, you're right. Georgetown got hosed on a call, but man, if you listen to the comments from Ed Cooley after, they got the right guy running the program. He did not. I mean, he talked about how good the referees are, how they had chances to win the game, how the team, it was his fault for not having the kid miss the second free throw. I mean, the last thing he did was blame the official. I don't think he ever blamed the officials. So it was pretty cool to see that. And apparently, I was not at the game, but apparently the place was actually packed, and they said it was one of the loudest Georgetown crowds they've had in a long, long time. So that was good. My buzzer beater, though, is just to mention the NBA in-season tourney. Final leg kicks off tonight. We've got in the West quarters, the Lakers have the 1 seed. They're playing the Suns. The Kings have the 2 seed taking the Pelicans. That is the Kings Pelicans play tonight at 10. And the East quarters are the Bucks with the 1 seed playing the Knicks. That's tomorrow night.
Whoa.
Tonight we've got number 2 Pacers playing the Celtics. All these games are in Vegas. So it's like a little March Madness sort of tournament there. And then the semis will be Thursday and the championship Saturday night. So that should be some fun stuff.
So no Nuggets. That's kind of crazy, right? Did the Nuggets just not care about this tournament?
I don't know, but all the reports have been that people do care about it, and they've been taking it pretty seriously. It's not been a gimmick thing to the players, apparently. So,
wait, so all these games are going to be in Vegas? The whole quarterfinals up to the final?
I think that's right.
So the teams will just stay in Vegas until Saturday?
I think I'm right about
finals?
that. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Anybody?
We have never done this before.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
and in fact, they had to actually, because of this, they had to tweak the schedule in the NBA for those teams that didn't make it. So there were a couple extra, even though they're all regular season games, these games don't count towards the regular season, these ones that are in Vegas. But the other teams they basically left a blank in the schedule. And now there's some quick games that are being filled in over this next week.
Right. And the last thing I'll leave you with, given that Georgia's out of the college football playoff, can anybody tell me the last team that won 3 championships in a row?
Minnesota.
Harvard.
Yale.
Who said Minnesota?
Me.
Patrick Milks got it. When was
right?
it?
1936 to 38, maybe?
I think it's 34 to 36.
Yeah.
But good job, Milks.
I just heard it this weekend. Weekend,
I would guess
That's
you didn't know that.
I totally just knew that.
Like some idiot
all right, anybody got
savant.
anything else? Anyone else?
Did you guys see that call last night? We don't have to do this on air.
Well, we're on air now.
All right. Well, did you guys see that? See that call last night in the Green Bay?
The Hail Mary
Chiefs game? No, the
Which
one before that, where the
it was
he got
Green
called.
Bay bad call.
Defensive back climbed over the back of Scandling Valdez or whatever his name is, MVS. How do you not call that?
As much NFL as I watch, which is probably too much, I think the pass interference is so inconsistent this year. I mean, you could call on defensive pass interference on pretty much every close call on whether they underthrew the receiver or they never turned their head.
But this one wasn't a close call. The guy jumped on his back and held his arm down.
Stop watching so much football and get outside and do something.
Get outside. All right,
guys,
turn the TV off.
See you guys.
Go Birds.